Welcome back to the channel. This is a More Better Ascend coming at you with a new deck. This is a Pioneer Soldiers deck. This is a deck that's pretty cheap, got some great value, big plays, and you can go really wide with this. Let's jump into the deck and see what we got going on here. So this is an aggro deck. Every single card in here is a creature except for 4. So let's just go through them real quick. It's a blue-white deck if you haven't figured that out by now. We have Recruitment Officer at 1. This is a 1-mana 2/1. This is a great 1-drop. Later on in the game, you can pay 4 and look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you can reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library. Every single creature card in our deck is 3 or less, except for 2 Roaming Thrones, so you have a pretty good shot at hitting something good. After that, we have 3 copies of Survivor of Corliss. This is a 1/1 first strike, and you can exile it from your graveyard to scry 2 for 2. So I have this in here because it is, first of all, it's first strike, which is a nice defender. And then once we start getting some lords out onto the battlefield, this is going to get a little bit bigger and is going to be a very nice blocker for us at 1 mana. Next up, we have Valiant Veteran. Speaking of lords, this is a 2-mana 2/2 that gives other soldiers you control +1/+1, which is very nice. We're going to have 4 of these in the deck, so that way we can pump these out as fast as we can and get all of our creatures up to a lot bigger size and strength. This is our finisher right here. This is Harbin Vanguard Aviator. There's 4 of these. It's legendary. It's a white, 1 blue for a 3/2 flyer. And whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, you get to get +1/+1 and gain flying until end of turn. So basically, you're going to flood the board. You're not going to put Harbin out. And then the turn that you put Harbin out, make sure you have at least 5 that you're attacking with. And then all of those creatures are going to get flying and +1/+1. And you can pretty much finish off any opponent at that point with this card, which is pretty great that your finisher is only 2 mana. Next up, we have Dennick Pious Apprentice. This is a 2-mana 2/3 with lifelink. And cards in graveyards can't be targets of spells or abilities. And if it dies, you can cast it again for its disturb cost for 3/2 flyer that creates clues when creatures die. I just throw 1 of these in there because he can be recast from the graveyard. And with all the lords and stuff like that, it's nice to have a lifelinker on the board to just kind of get some extra survivability going on. This is our only non-creature spell in the entire deck. It's a 2-mana instant with a kicker. If this spell was kicked for 1 white mana, and we are a 2-color deck, so we can do that, you get to create a white soldier creature token, which is nice, adds to our amount of soldiers, and adds to our board to go wide. Counter target spell, unless its controller pays 1 for each creature you control. So you kick this, it adds 1, and then if you have any other creatures on the board, that adds another 1. So most of the time, people can't pay this because with a deck like this, you're going wide. So you're going to have a lot of creatures on the board. So they're not going to be able to pay this. So this is going to be just a straight up hard cast or hard counter. Next up, we have Coppercoat Vanguard. This is another fantastic soldier. Each other human you control gets +1/+0, so it's another lord, and has ward 1. So between this, the Valiant Veteran, and the Coppercoat Vanguard, your creatures are going to be huge, and they're going to have the protection with ward. And then you can still counter stuff with your Protect the Negotiators. So this is definitely an all-star of this deck for sure. Next up, we have Siege Veteran. Now we're getting up into the 3-mana creatures. This creature's great. Creates so much value for 3 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. And then whenever a non-token soldier you control dies, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. So all of our creatures that we cast, if any one of them dies, it immediately gets replaced with a 1/1 token. If that token dies, obviously it doesn't get replaced. But, you know, they do a board wipe and they wipe out your whole board. Guess what? You have replacements for all those creatures with 1/1s. It's great. And then you get to constantly boost things. So you can keep boosting your Survivor of Corliss, so you can keep making that first striker huge. You can bump up, literally you can bump up your Denic like crazy just to get that lifelink going. So this is definitely a very good card in this deck. Next up, talking about value, this is a 3-mana 2/3 flyer, and whenever the Skystrike officer attacks, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. So you're creating tokens with this, but then you can also tap 3 untapped soldiers and draw a card. So that leaves card draw up to as many creatures you have on the board. So if you have Skystrike officer attacking, creating tokens, you have a bunch of other smaller creatures that we've cast prior to this, you can tap them to draw cards. So if you have a decent amount of life, tap everything you got, draw a couple cards, and then if you have that open mana, you can just recast stuff to replace the stuff that you've tapped. And then the next turn after that, you're going to have a huge board. So this is definitely a great card. And then this is our removal package, which is Brutal Cathar. This is a 2/2 for 3 mana. And when it enters the battlefield or transforms, because it is a werewolf, but also a soldier, you can exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. So let's just look at the other side of this card real quick. It is a 3/3 first striker with a ward of pay 3 life. And then it just transforms back. And guess what? You're grabbing another creature. And now to do all this stuff, to get even more insane value, we put in 2 roaming thrones. These are optional. You don't have to put the roaming throne in this deck. It doesn't work with all the creatures that are going on here, but it does work with the Brutal Cathar. It does work with creating the tokens, and it does work with creating tokens here as well, and the +1/+1 counter. So your top end is going to be a lot bigger for things that you can do. And it's going to create a lot of extra tokens and grab extra things off the battlefield. So it has good value. It is a good top end. There might be something better. If there is something better, let me know in the comments. It's also the most expensive card in the deck. So you can definitely cut this out and save a ton of money, because these are $34 each. So it's about $70 for 2 cards. And this is a $99 deck. So take these out and you have a super, super budget Soldiers deck. Going into the mana base, we have 23 lands, bunch of plains, bunch of islands, bunch of fortified beachheads, which you reveal a soldier card and it comes in untapped, which is great. And then you can pay 5 and all your soldiers get +1/+1 till end of turn. We have 4 dual lands here. We have 1 Iganjo just for some more removal on the attacks. And that's it. This deck is pretty awesome. I do not own this in paper, but I have played it before. I am looking for suggestions to replace the roaming throne. So if you have one, please let me know, because I would love to build this in paper just because of how cheap it is. But the roaming throne is kind of stopping me from doing something like that. So if you like this deck, like, comment, subscribe, do all the algorithm things. I haven't been posting that many videos that lately, just because Aether Drift is like the worst set of all time. I hate it. It's awful, and I really don't want to make any decks for it. So leave a comment down below what you want to see next. And until next time, I'm More Better Ascend, and we'll catch you tomorrow for another deck tech.